They should be all out here. Pretzels or eggs, they should be out there. You can pick them up, take them with you. And again, we'll settle accounts. Vinny and Rocco will come pay you a visit. Make sure yous aren't holding back. So I got a quick question. Just make sure we're all on the same page. How many believe the scripture, the Bible, is to tell us how we're supposed to lead our lives? Okay? And before we criticize someone else about how they're leading their lives, we should make sure we are living our lives according to scripture. How many agree with that? Right? That's the whole, don't point out the speck in your brother's eye while you have a plank in your own eye. Now, do you think we can pick and choose what we want out of Scripture? I'll follow this, but, I don't really want to follow that one. It's kind of like a menu. You only do what you want to do, and you don't do the other stuff. And you can criticize those who don't do the things that you think you should do, and don't worry about them. I'm glad you guys think that, because we're going to talk about a topic today. We're going to talk about money, tithing, finances, and everything in between. This will start making people feel uncomfortable. Now, I will admit, I do not like preaching on tithing or sermons about giving, because I believe giving is between the person and God, and frankly, God is the one that's going to hold you accountable in the end, not me. But during my time in ministry, I've learned that a lot of people are not very good with their finances. And this comes from a person who was vice president of operations, who oversaw all the expenses and the cost and profit margins and all of our projects at my computer company. So being good with finances was kind of something I had to do. And I also know that a lot of people really don't biblically tithe either. And when people talk to me about tithing and their finances, they talk about how they don't have any money and insert excuse here. I've heard them all. But that is more of a finance management issue than it is an income issue. Rarely has people not tithe because they don't have enough income. They don't tithe because they don't know how to manage their money. Most people don't even have household budgets. And they don't have household budgets, then they're not able to track all of their spending. If you don't track all of your spending, then you really have no clue how much money you waste every month. I've had people tell me they don't have any money to tithe, but they eat fast food almost every day of the week. You would save a lot of money by just buying some groceries and fixing some meals at home. Now, I'm not a big cooker. I don't prepare a whole lot of my food, right? But Margaret will know that when Sue leaves me for a weekend, which I encourage, when she leaves me I'm a very good person to get away from for like 3 days if you can do it. So when she goes and bees a grandma or whatever, Margaret knows I'll feed myself for $11. I'll go get the 8-piece thigh and leg set for $7.99 and a thing of macaroni salad. That's 3 dinners for $11. You can do it if you know how. Now, if I would go out for a fast food, that's one meal. That's one meal. Fast food used to be cheap. It ain't cheap no more. So, yeah, finance management. I'm like, well, legs and thighs, man, that's 3, even 4 if I'm not piggish. But usually at the most I get out of it's 3. And I drink water. So I don't have to buy the sodas. I just need some macaroni salad, some fried chicken. I'm set. I have cereal at home. I got bread for toast. I'm good. So it's usually a finance management issue. And again, when we eat out or waste money on fast food, you can save a lot more money if you did something like groceries. Of course, there's the typical waste of money on things like sin tax items. Well, I think sin tax, if you guys remember that, that's alcohol, that's cigarettes, of course, if anybody abuses drugs, and lottery tickets. I was always told that lottery tickets is the poor person's taxes. Now, what that means is if they don't make enough money or don't have enough income to pay into the state, the state will get their money from them by selling them lottery tickets. And the state's going to get their money. Lottery tickets is just like a casino. The house always wins. So, again, if you're able to spend money on those types of items and you say you don't have enough money to tithe, it's not an income issue. It's a finance management issue. So basically, you have to put, if you choose to spend money on those type of things, you're choosing that vice, or you're making that a higher priority on your finances than giving to God. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 25. Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 25. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, in my Bible, this passage is actually called Jesus Teaches About Money. And I mentioned that I don't like preaching about tithing or money. I've always had finance people at the church saying, you need to preach about tithing, or you need to preach about giving. You should do it once a quarter. Bob Hoffer would want me to preach it every other week. And I was like, Bob, no. I'm not going to keep harping on it. But we see here in Scripture that Jesus is teaching about money. He's talking about finances. This whole passage is actually, if you have a red letter Bible, this is all red letters. This is all Jesus speaking. So obviously God thought it was something that was important. Now, as a matter of fact, in case you did not know this, if you haven't read all the Bible, all the Scriptures, Jesus talks more about money, finances, good stewardship, and financial issues more than he talks about heaven and hell. And it's interesting because everybody wants to talk about heaven and hell, but Jesus talked a lot about finances and good stewardship and money. Because we like to pick on what well, if you believe in Jesus, you go to heaven. If not, you go to hell. You better believe in Jesus. Well, Jesus talks a lot more about some other things that we like to ignore or skip over. So being good and responsible with our finances was a very key point in Jesus' ministry for the people, but also for the church. The church needs to be good stewards with their finances and their money as well. Now, Jesus knew that money was going to be a big problem for people. It was a problem in every culture and all groups of people throughout history, and we know it's still a big problem today too. Now notice the passage ends with the statement, you cannot serve both God and money. Just for the record, Jesus never said you cannot serve both God and Satan. Jesus knew people's love for money or this mismanagement of their finances was going to be a bigger problem than people turning to Satan. They'll be pulled away for their love of money more than they will following Satan. So Jesus says they can't serve both God and money. Jesus knows how much of a problem it is with people, how they easily get tempted or persuaded. Now, this talks about investing money on things that matter, and to make sure that they are not treasures here on earth that will rust and be destroyed or eaten within 5 minutes of going through the drive-thru. Or it's not talking about treasures on earth that can be stolen if someone breaks into your house. This passage talks about investing money in things that matter and make sure that they are not treasures here on earth that will rust and destroy. Jesus is saying we need to invest in treasures in heaven because where we keep our treasures is where our heart is. So where are your treasures? What do you spend more time thinking about? money or God? I've always been told in seminary, if people want to know where they spend their most money or where their heart is, look at their calendar and their checkbook. Where they're spending the most time and where they're spending the most money is where their heart is. So what is your calendar filled with? Where are you? Now, I guess now you don't look at checkbooks. Look at your statement, your credit card statements, right? And see where you're spending your time and where you're spending your money. Where do you spend more money on any given month? Do you even know where you're spending your money? Do you tithe the biblical 10%? How many of you know that 10% is what your biblical tithe is supposed to be? Right? It's 10% of everything is actually how it's listed. That includes time. 10% of your time, 10% of your money. Do you even know what your 10% is supposed to be per month? How many of you have actually taken the time to figure that out? Now, if you want to be a person who gives a full 10%, there's only one way you can really do that. You must make that a priority. If you don't make it a priority, you will never do it. Now, you should know what you make per year. I'm assuming everyone here, I can say that now because we just did ours this past week, has done your taxes. All right? If not, you're pushing it to the last 2 weeks, and good luck with that one. But if you filled out your taxes, you know what your income is for the year. The way you figure out 10%, this is going to be tough. The way you figure out 10%, take the decimal point and move it to the left one spot. That's 10%. That is 10%. That's what your tithing should be for a year. If you want to figure out what it is per month, we're going to get even trickier. Take that number and divide it by 12. And that is now your monthly tithe. So move the decimal one from your income taxes, move it to the left once, divide it by 12, and that should be your monthly tithe. Every month, if you want to biblically tithe, you take your tithe out first, and then you live on the rest. That means you pay your bills with the rest. You do your entertainment with the rest. If you wait to the end of the month and tithe on what you have left, it will never be a biblical tithe. Matter of fact, you probably won't have anything left if you're most people who tend to spend all their paychecks by the end of the month. Now, how many of you don't have to raise your hand, but in your head, how many of you can think that's impossible? But I'm telling you, God says in Scripture to test Him on this. I challenge you to try it. Now, I know Sue and I and another pastor friend of mine, as we were going through seminary, we both made the decision to biblically tithe. Now, this is two individuals who are coming from the secular world where we're making a lot more money than we were going to make as pastors. So we both said, his wife and Sue and I, and we both said that, we need to biblically tithe if we're going to be pastors and lead a church. So we found out that when we started biblically tithing, we actually ended up with more money left at the end of the month than we did when we were making more money. Because what we found by tithing first is that we weren't wasting money on things that we didn't need. We ate out less. We found cheaper entertainment. We started planning dinners better, so a meal would feed us for a couple of days. I don't know how much pasta or whatever, but if you make a pan of lasagna, that's going to feed Sue and I for four meals. Yeah, 4. We're both eating a little less now that we're older. In the good old days, that might have been 2.5, but yeah, I don't know. I've gotten older, I eat less. Sue's gotten older, we eat less. Again, a thing of chicken can feed me for 3 nights. So we eliminated impulse buys, like fast food and stuff like that, because no, we don't need that. We got leftovers at home. And now that our daughter had left, you ever had a kid who wouldn't eat leftovers? Now that she's a parent, she's leftovers. Because you learn that, reheat it and eat it again. So before you know it, we were actually putting more money in savings than we were when we were in the secular world. And to put it all in perspective, when I went into ministry full time, my first salary was $25,000. And that was a 75% pay cut from what I was making in the business world. So this obviously required a lifestyle change for Sue and me. We made life a lot simpler. We didn't waste money on things we didn't need. We made tithing our priority and lived off the rest. That was our